everyone and welcome to Initiative Africa. I'm Asha Sampet and I'm thrilled you're joining us for this new pivotal week as we transition from the final days of 2024 into the promising start of 2025. As we do each year, we're shining a spotlight on the innovations, breakthroughs and experiences that have shaped the African continent in 2024. This program offers a unique opportunity to reflect on the progress made across Africa over the past year as shared through the stories of our guests. It's time for Initiative Africa. Let's dive into the top stories of today's show. A retrospective on 2024 with our guests of the year. In this special segment, we'll explore how Africa and its talents have experienced the economic, social and cultural evolution of recent months. Despite the challenges, the continent is increasingly infused with a new determination to assert its voice, reclaim its history and defend the most vulnerable. Join us as we reconnect with some of our distinguished guests. Marie-Paule Okri, President of the Ivorian Women's Rights League, Mountaga Diop, founder of the Kirikou Association, Molemo Moiloa, a prominent figure in Johannesburg's cultural scene, Moroccan film director Asmae Moudir, and Mossadeck, President of the Azalai Hotel Group. TV series that inspire dreams will also shine a light on the return of Welcome to Kikidéni, the popular Burkinabe TV series. In its third season, it humorously and poignantly addresses social issues in Burkina Faso, reminding us of the power of storytelling in reflecting societal change.
It's an honor for me to work with these giants of African cinema because they cradle us and our childhoods, and to be up against these guys for the challenge.
Finally, we'll take you to Cape Town, where a pivotal conference on the restitution of African heritage sparked a vital conversation between France and South Africa. We were there to capture the highlights of this important moment in cultural diplomacy.
In France, obviously, it was the Ouagadougou speech which gave a new vision of what the relations between France and Africa could be. In particular, in a relationship of new epics, a new relationship which would involve listening and which would go through restitution.
This year, many of you found yourselves laughing, sighing, and being captivated by the adventures of your favorite TV series. In Burkina Faso, it was an unexpected trio, a village chief, an imam, and a priest that captured the hearts of viewers with a highly anticipated return of Welcome to Kikidéni's third season. These three characters, each representing a unique facet of Burkinabe society in crisis, embody the nation's collective struggle to overcome security challenges and reaffirm its sovereignty. Our correspondent in Burkina Faso, Sonia Kokti, was able to go behind the scenes of this iconic series and bring you an inside look.
Welcome to Kikidéni, the third season of a triptych launched 20 years ago. In 2005 by Jovial Production, returns to the screens. It's D-Day for the unveiling of the work to the Burkinabe public. Feeling the nostalgia from the previous seasons, they are eager to discover this new season.
More than 10 years without filming, and the requests were really very pressing. We were getting feedback from just about everywhere, not just Burkina, about when we were getting started again. And then you think about it, but in the end, it's a virus that you have in your DNA. It never leaves you. I wanted to do this, firstly for my own pleasure and for the team. And now we hope that everyone will love it.
The principal actors in the show remain the same, except for the chief's first wife, Tene, who is absent for medical reasons. Lodji, Mary, the priest and the village chief are all delighted to be back on the set of this series.
Season 1, 3 men, 1 village. Second season, 3 women, 1 village. And then Welcome to Kikidéni, the third season. A beautiful experience that continued with Welcome to Kikidéni. It was a great experience over many years, which was renewed. We all had a big bonus of 10 years of artistic life. We've corrected the small mistakes.
The humor in the show has not changed. The actors have kept up their talent for provoking giggles. In the first 3 episodes screened at this premiere, the audience discovers the story of a terrible coincidence of dates for a religious festival and other events related to the beliefs of the villagers. So they had to find a solution.
The part where we reach an agreement so that the different events could take place on the same day show me that the differences between the different religions should not be a source of conflict and that we can find common ground. There's no need to hate each other or argue. Always promoting solidarity and peace between religions, I mean the traditional Christian and Muslim religions, and also to promote togetherness.
In 2023, Jovial Production will begin shooting the show in Waousé, a village around 30 kilometers from Ouagadougou, for around a year. The cast has been refreshed with the arrival of young actors. Eleonore Copti and Taleb Kont, the famous duo from the show Further and Further Away.
I was happy when I was told that I was going to be in the show, but then I thought, well, I've never acted in this kind of film before. As a Burkinabe, as an African, the regret we have most of the time is that our audiences do not immediately see our movies, let's say local audiences. So playing in Welcome to Kikidéni, which is already a concept adopted by the people of Burkina Faso and adulated by Africans, is a plus for me in my career because in terms of notoriety, it's not the same thing.
Niveau notoriété, c'est pas la même chose. C'est pas la même chose, c'est beaucoup plus grand.
It's a lot bigger, a lot wider, and a lot faster too. It's one of the best, if not the best, of my sets.
Sinon même le meilleur de mes plateaux.
Welcome to Kikidéni is a show that brings together all generations, a show that for the director comes as a support to Burkina Faso in the context of rebuilding the nation in the face of terrorism and the impetus of a surge of sovereignty in the concert of nations.
We also wanted to give a nod to our defense and security forces given the security situation. If we manage to do what we do to live our dreams, it's precisely because people have the courage to go to the front and fight for us. So it was really a tribute to them. We tried to do what they did, but unfortunately we didn't succeed.
In the 21 episodes, each 26 minutes long, the show presents a whole way of life that reflects the people of Burkina Faso. The spirit of living together and patriotism is brought to the minds and hearts of men of integrity. These are the values being promoted today so that their country, Burkina Faso, can triumph over terrorism, reassert its sovereignty and build a society where life is worth living.
Women's rights and their role in Africa's future. What role can women play in addressing the continent's social and economic challenges? This was a central theme for our guests in 2024. Among them, the tireless Ivorian activist Marie-Paule Okri has dedicated her life to advocating for women's rights. As president of the Ivorian League for Women's Rights and recipient of the prestigious Simone de Beauvoir Prize, she raises a critical issue: the contradiction between customary land rights and the economic contributions women make to food production and transformation. Let's hear her perspective.
We also provide political training for women to enhance their participation in politics and continue to lobby decision makers to support laws that promote women's empowerment and access to land. Fortunately, our laws in Côte d'Ivoire give women access to land and the right to inherit. We often face customary laws on the ground that deny women the right to own land. It's crucial to raise awareness and educate village decision makers and traditional chiefs about the importance of women having land rights. Given that these women contribute 80% of our food production.
Et ce sont ces femmes qui produisent tout ce qu'on mange. Les hommes sont de grands producteurs, mais des producteurs de cacao.
Men are important producers of crops like cocoa and rubber. These are not direct food sources. Ensuring that women have access to land is essential for food security and sovereignty, as they produce the food we consume daily, such as eggplant, rice, and vegetables, which are vital for the country. Therefore, addressing the issue of women's access to land is both urgent and necessary.
In 2024, as Africa continues to face the heartbreaking loss of its youth to migration, what role can women play in reversing this trend? How can we shift from dangerous emigration, which leads to brain drain, to more regulated forms of migration that still honor the desire to explore the world? Mountaga Diop, founder of the Kirikou Association, shared with us how he has worked with women in Dakar to address the risks of migration and help young people make informed decisions about their futures. Let's take a look.
I decided to set up a Kirikou branch following a meeting I had with local elected representatives. The idea was to work upstream on the causes because I'm convinced that just as much as we talk about the situation of migrants and minors in Morocco and France, at some point we had to reflect on the reasons that drive these young people to take the road to death. So when I discussed these issues with the elected representatives, I thought it was necessary to set up something in Dakar with friends and volunteers who were involved, to try to really reflect on it with a think tank, to see that what pushes these young people to leave, even if the reasons are known. And we thought of deploying a setup in Dakar. So the idea was already to implement daycare nurseries in rural areas, in rural urban areas, to help our women in rural areas who are struggling in market gardening and agriculture, so that they can shelter their children and go to work, but also to set up life projects in villages, in rural areas, in towns, in rural urban areas. Structural training for these young people so that they stay, so that they are stable and not tempted to leave. And those who have failed go back to school to take refresher courses with skills training to try to get a decent job on the field with the support of these local elected representatives. So we've signed agreements with a number of town councils in Senegal. And today, the Senegal team is also working on the ground to try and raise awareness of the need to prevent these young people from leaving. To raise the awareness among the local elected representatives and politicians, to set up projects, to finance projects for these young people, for these women, so that at least this can reduce the impact of mass migration.
In your experience, do these awareness-raising programs help to stop illegal immigration?
I think it can help regulate things, at least on a regular basis, because we are all citizens of the world. We don't tell the men and women of my generation not to travel, not wanting change, or not to do an Erasmus in Berlin or Paris. It's a right and a desire for every man or young woman in Africa today, from Bujumbura to Dakar. All these young people have dreamed of living, traveling, changing, meeting new people and cultures, so it's an ideal. It's a universal idea, but we are careful to ensure that these departures are regulated.
Are you seeking to boost your business in Africa and Europe? Increase your visibility with Business Frequency thanks to our network of national television channels in more than 40 countries. Every week, more than 100 broadcasts across Africa, the Indian Ocean and Europe. Don't miss this unique opportunity. Contact us now and put your brand into the spotlight.
Welcome to the second part of our show. 2024, a year of mobilization for the restitution of cultural heritage. This year, the issue of restitution of looted cultural property has gained significant traction across Africa. Now, let me take you to South Africa, specifically to Cape Town, where a landmark event in February brought global attention to the critical issues of restitution and, in some cases, the return of Africa's stolen cultural heritage. Hundreds of thousands of African cultural artifacts looted during the colonial era continue to adorn museums across Europe. The conference Reimagining Heritage, Archives and Museums Today, Tomorrow marked a pivotal moment in the evolving relationship between France and South Africa. Let's take a closer look.
Cape Town hosted the Reimagining Heritage, Archives and Museums Today Tomorrow conference last February. The event put the spotlight on challenging issues around restitution funding and indigenization and collections care and management in an African context to community engagement. The conference aimed to develop a framework for future cooperation projects between France and South Africa.
In France, obviously, it was the Ouagadougou speech which gave a new vision of what the relations between France and Africa could be, in particular, in a relationship of new ethics, a new relationship which would involve listening and which would go through restitution. The president says permanent or temporary, that is to say, the proper restitution, but also the circulation of works in Africa. That's what we did during these 3 days by bringing together 300 people from across Africa, 13 nationalities, 90 speakers, 50% women, and it's really a deep conviction.
Restitution have in the past tended to take place between northern countries. They're gradually moving towards other continents, and especially the south. And the president of Kikidéni Jacques Chirac Museum believes that it's a great opportunity.
They tend to take place between northern countries. They are gradually moving towards other continents, and that is fortunate. So this is a really very important step for us. And indeed, we first worked on the Benin case because the request was immediately intelligible and precise. Then, we are working with other countries which have made some requests. There are 5 in total: Mali, Chad, Ethiopia, and Côte d'Ivoire.
For Dr. Rudo Sitole, founder of AfriMuhere, an association which has a clear mandate, safeguard, promote and facilitate restitution of African heritage, having these conversations around cultural heritage is critical.
It is very, very important to have this conversation as Africa. Africa was dispossessed of its heritage. Pre-colonial times, colonial times, slavery times, a lot of African heritage was taken to the Western world. So this is the time now to right the wrongs of the past and talk about restitution of African objects, repatriation of African human remains.
For the younger generations like Mahotonji Kinmangbo, a 3D visual artist from Benin, it is paramount to engage in discussions with young creative talents because they have a very particular perspective on African history.
So my restitution is not just about restituting artifacts, but also the restitution of memories. We need to decolonize our imagination because we grew up with some references that were not true. So having artifact back, but also engaging in a new way with those artifacts is so important and impactful for African creative and African people in general.
The Musée du Quai Branly, the British Museum, as well as all the national museums do not own the artworks and the objects. It is the country that owns them. But how can we know if the artworks or objects fall under the restitution category?
70,000 African objects. Let's see what we are talking about. They are certainly large, very impressive statues, like those that were returned to Benin. But there are also many objects from daily life, and this is what also interested some of the ethnographers who did this collection work. So let's start from some concrete perspective. Look at it and discuss whether the objects fall within the scope of restitution, where they were acquired illicitly, either by armed force or by administrative constraint.
Question of funding arises given the scope and the large number of objects claimed. Various benefactors are involved, and one of them is the Open Society Foundation's global philanthropy that advances the agenda of human rights, equity, and democracy.
So the Open Society Foundations, I currently lead a global initiative for the restitution of African heritage, where we have invested $10 million over the span of 2 years to support creatives, artists, scholars, academia, the African Union, and they are supporting the field of restitution.
Consequently, at the end of 2023, France and Germany decided to join forces to create a Franco-German fund dedicated to researching the provenance of objects and works of art originating from sub-Saharan African countries present in their collections. A fund worth 2.1 million euros, experimental for the next 3 years, and should give some hope to many Africans.
Yes, I'm very, very optimistic. As Africans, we've been requesting our heritage ever since the time they started taking it, but they were not listening to us. But I'm happy times have changed. We had in 2017 President Macron. He shocked the world when he said, let's return to Africa what belongs to Africa. And that initiated an earthquake which I think cannot be stopped until a significant amount of African heritage has been brought back.
Is decolonization well underway in European museums? On the one hand, for 3 years, while several countries such as France, Germany and Belgium have been working to return African objects from their collections, other major nations such as the United Kingdom have been slowing down and remain deaf to the calls of the despoiled countries. And on the other hand, many victim countries struggle to bring together the necessary conditions for the reception and conservation of these works due to a lack of legal, scientific and also educational framework. Note that until now, very few artifacts have returned to their land of origin.
One of our guests deeply engaged with the complex issues surrounding the restitution of African heritage is Molemo Moiloa, a leading figure in Johannesburg's vibrant cultural scene. Known for her ability to bridge artistic expression with community engagement, Molemo explores popular imaginations through the collective Made You Look. In addition to her artistic work as a researcher at Andani Africa and a lecturer at the University of Witwatersrand, she plays a significant role in shaping the ongoing discussions about restitution. Let's hear her insights.
So I think the big question with restitution that is emerging is, for a very long time, the fight was to try and get particularly Europeans and other people of the global north to agree to return things, to agree that there was a right to have our material heritage back. That has been a kind of hurdle that's been largely overcome. Not entirely, but it's been largely overcome. And so you are seeing returns. What we're now dealing with is a complexity around the nuances of the process of return and how that turns into something closer to restitution. So for me, the difference between return and restitution is that return takes a museum object and then puts it on a plane and sends it somewhere else, ideally home, in inverted commas. Restitution is really about the repair of the breakage that happened in the process of taking that object in the first place, and trying to repair also the knowledges that have been lost since it's been gone. And that means there's a lot of work to happen in Africa. So just because something's being put on a plane doesn't mean that the job is over. In fact, it's just started. And one of the big issues we're seeing at the moment is that a lot of the resources that are going into restitution go into that aeroplane moment. They go into provenance research in European museums. It goes into European staff doing research and other work to return an object. And then maybe, if we're lucky, it goes into the costs of returning an object. But then there's nothing. There's no support. There's no help. And Africans are alone in thinking about, okay, now this is back. How do we repair what has been broken? And the repairing of what has been broken is much more important than the movement of an object. And I think that's going to be the big work for the next couple of years.
Reclaiming the past is a powerful aspiration for a new generation of African creators. A striking example of this is the work of Moroccan director Asmae Moudir, who, despite her grandmother's objections, bravely delved into her family's history. In her documentary, The Mother of All Lies, she skillfully and creatively explores a neighborhood in old Casablanca, weaving together personal and collective histories.
Your film portrays the years of lead in Morocco. What message did you want to send?
Yes, I just wanted to tell my grandmother's generation that Morocco has changed. Today, we live in a different Morocco, a much better and more free Morocco. And we can look back on our past without fear. And most of all, I wasn't looking for the guilty parties or who did this or who did that. I was asking the question, can you tell stories if you don't have proof? And above all, the message, if there is a message, because cinema never has messages, it provokes. And what I've done in this film is to provoke things and raise questions about memory. The message will be, don't erase the memory, keep it whatever it is. White, black, it's our past. We must keep it, we must preserve it. It has to be an article for future generations, because if you don't have a memory, you can't have a future.
And to conclude the year, let's not overlook the business world. As we step into 2025, I'd like to begin with the inspiring vision of one of the continent's most distinguished business leaders. I'm talking about Mossadeck, the Malian CEO of the Azalai Hotel Group, who shared invaluable insights into the fundamental virtues that drive success in business. His advice is not only practical, but also filled with deep wisdom. Let's listen to him.
An entrepreneur is first and foremost a dreamer. This means he has a vision. You have to feel that fire inside you. I've always had that fire. Even when I was a kid, I saw my father and I always had that fire. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. That's why, in fact, when I finished my university studies in San Francisco, I didn't stay too long in the United States. I went straight back to Mali. So once you've done that introspection, you have to have that vision. Everything starts with a vision, and my entrepreneurial vision was really to create a Pan-African hotel chain. And that's what we've managed to do in 30 years. And to realize your vision, you need strategy. So you need to surround yourself with highly competent people. And that's what I've done. After that, the rest is about values and resilience, because entrepreneurship is an obstacle race. And every day, you have an obstacle to overcome. If you give up at the first or second obstacle, you are not made to be an entrepreneur. You have to be resilient. I've come close to bankruptcy on several occasions. I've had lots of failures, but I never gave up. I always kept going. I've always said to myself, no matter how dark it gets, the sun always rises. Then you have to be simple and humble. You have to grow with your business, not grow before your business. I see a lot of young people who start up as soon as things start to walk a bit, then they jump on the fast track, do all kinds of useless things, and after a few years, the business disappears. So you have to grow with your business little by little and keep your head on your shoulders. Then you have to be honest and have intellectual and moral probity, because without that, you're going nowhere. And I always say to young people, and I say it again and again, to all those who want to embark on this career of entrepreneurship, your greatest capital is not what's on your account, it's how other people see you. If they have confidence in you, they will help you.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Initiative Africa. This marks our final show for the year 2024. But don't worry, you can catch all of our broadcasts on our news website, africaonair.com, and stay connected with us on our social media channels. Don't forget to share, like, and comment using the hashtag Initiative Africa. And be sure to join us next week at the same time on the same channel for Business Africa. Wishing you all a wonderful week ahead and happy end of year celebrations. Goodbye.